Hi folks, it's been a while since I made a quick pick video, so I wanted to put another one out. But to be honest, the dilemma that we face is that there just aren't really good deals, at least not easy to find good deals on laptops out there, particularly at the lower price points. Um, Case in point, we go to Best Buy and we constrain ourselves to sort of the types of computers, Windows, new computers. I even went ahead and opened it up to Celeron chips in addition to the Intel i3 and i5 and the AMD Ryzen 3 and Ryzen 5. And in particular, I'm going to look for machines that are less than 15.6 inches big. I'm not looking for tiny machines, but there's a sweet spot somewhere around 13.3 to 14 inches for laptops that are portable, particularly if you're going to have them used by kids that are still big enough to see, but they're small enough to be convenient, if you will. And I think a lot of people, particularly with kids going back to school, many of them online or virtual or hybrid this fall, that's sort of what people are looking for. So anyways, I did a search at Best Buy. And sure enough, what we're going to see is sort of a common theme here. There's sort of three categories that I would break the results into. First of all, the ones that are obviously in short supply. You can maybe get them if you order them online, but they're not in a store anyplace close to you. So here we see the cheapest machine is, because I have sorted price low to high, is the HP Stream, which is a fine machine for what it is. Tends to be pretty slow. It is on a Celeron. It usually is on an older Celeron. And also, it comes with what's called eMMC storage. It's faster than a hard drive, but it's not an SSD, so it's not going to boot up all that quickly. It's also only got 4 gig of memory, which, if we talked about these machines, say, this time last year, I would say 4 gig is probably the minimum. Nowadays, I'm leaning more towards 6 or 8 gig. So it's probably got a couple of strikes against it, even at that price point, and even if we could get it. The second category are the ones that are just flat out unavailable. So I think the main difference between the first and the second in this list, HP is still calling the 11.6 inch laptop the Stream, but they've tried to rebrand or rename what used to be the 14 inch Stream to differentiate them. It's pretty much the same hardware, the same look and feel. It's really plasticky case. Now they're sturdy. They have big bezels around the screen, which makes them, somewhat, I won't say indestructible, but less prone to being broken if a kid is throwing them around or something. Now again, though, we're still talking about only 4 gig of memory. We're talking about that eMMC storage, and the Celeron chip in these are just not that fast. Now, as you go up the third category are laptop brands I've never heard of before. I don't know who makes Thompson, and given the prevalence of the number of Thompson listings here, I'm starting to suspect that maybe Best Buy is doing like Walmart and a couple of others have done and coming up with sort of store brands or closely held connections with some third-party supplier that they make machines just for them. But I've never heard of Thompson, and to be honest, I probably would not get a Thompson at this point. We go up a little bit, we see an Asus machine. Now again, I do like Asus machines, but I already know from the price point and from the fact that it's still using the eMMC storage and that it's got 4 gig of memory. This is an older machine. This is actually a couple of years old, I think. And, that's going to hold it against it. There's another Thompson. There's another Thompson. Here's another Asus. Now, it's got not a new Celeron, but the N3350 it's decent. But again, I would still like to see more than 4 gig of memory and more than 64 gig. So the three categories, they've got it, but it's not one you'd want. They've maybe got a couple, but it's hard to get, even if it is one you want. And then the ones that, well, they got plenty of them, but I've never heard of the brand. Now, as we keep going up, we see, again, getting more soon, right? Yes, it's available for shipping, but the question is, when's it going to be in stores close to us or anything? And, there's some good deals here. This AMD Ryzen 14-inch laptop, it's very similar to the second listing we had up above, except it's got more memory. It's got 128 gig SSD. My only concern here, to be honest, is that there's no reviews. And secondly, 128 gig storage. Yes, it's an SSD, but that's still, you're going to run into problems in terms of storing things. And here we're talking about almost $400 anyways. So as we keep going, we'll see sold out, but that's $500. Not yet reviewed, it's $529. Right, so, and again, down here, lots of unavailable in your store, but maybe we can get it to you online. And now we're getting to the $600, $700 price range. So if you're looking for a laptop, either a second laptop for yourself or a laptop for a kid, you're probably looking, to spend no more than, ideally, somewhere in the 200s, but certainly not much more than 300s. So I wanted to talk about an alternative to sort of Best Buy and sort of the conventional brands that we normally look for. And what I wanted to mention is that there are a couple of, I won't say fairly well known, but known by some people, Chinese laptop brands that there's a couple of places to get them. They're basically manufactured in China. They're sold in China, but either people buy them and then sell them with a slight markup here, or there are markets, I'll show you an example of one in just a second, that will actually put you in touch with sellers in China. You then have to wait a couple of weeks in some cases to get the laptop, but there are laptops in the $200 to $300 price range, $200 to $350 at least, that you might want to consider and that are better than even the ones that are in stock here at the low end of the price range. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of examples. And first, both the ones I'm going to show you are available on Amazon. Now, there's good and bad things about both of them, and I'll talk about them as we go through them. I will say that my gut feeling is that there's a slight markup for buying them on Amazon. They're either purchased in bulk by somebody and then they sell them in ones and twos and mark them up a little bit, but you're still getting a pretty good deal for your buck, if you will. And after that, I'll show you. There's a Chinese reseller. It's similar to a Chinese eBay, but for new products, really, called Banggood. And you can get both of the machines that I'm going to suggest at a slightly lower price, in addition to some other brands that I would feel somewhat comfortable having you investigate. So the first one we're going to talk about here is the Jumper EZbook X3. And at first glance, you say, okay, wait a minute. I don't really see why this is better than those sort of real cheap laptops that you were talking about over here, Troy. You said you don't like it when they've got eMMC storage. You're not a big fan of the Intel Celeron and 4 gig memory. Well, let me point out what's different here. Yes, this only has an N3350, which was a solid Celeron chip a couple of years ago. It's still okay. And if you're going to be doing primarily consumption, right, so you're watching videos or doing some light word processing or surfing the web, it's a fine chip. But more importantly, a lot of times what you'll find, it's the 4 gig that holds you back more than the Celeron processor. So one thing to note here is this has 6 gigabyte of memory. Now it only comes with 64 gig eMMC, just like the HP Stream we saw before. However, and I'll scroll down to show you, a lot of these Chinese laptops, this one included, come with a very easy to remove little panel on the bottom. You take that thing off and then you can slide, in this case it's an M.2 size 22 times 42, and they sell lots of these on Amazon. But it's actually an SSD. Now it's not the latest, greatest, fastest SSD, but it's a heck of a lot faster than the eMMC storage that comes built in. And what I've seen, one of the advantages, to be honest, of getting a slightly mature chip, shall we say, is that if you're going to want to do different things with your machine, like a lot of people that buy this nowadays are looking to do things like put Linux on their machine. And the nice thing is that if you add that SSD and that panel in the back, you can put Windows on the SSD and have it boot fast, or you can put Linux on the built-in eMMC and it'll boot slightly slower, but Linux is a fast operating system. Or, you could basically just put the SSD in and have more storage. Now, right now this thing's selling for $249 on Amazon, and I'll provide a link. The last few days, though, I've seen it selling for right around $202, $203 as one of the daily specials or today's deals, whatever they call them. So I think that either here or elsewhere you can get this configuration, which, yes, it's a slower, older Celeron, but a little bit more RAM than we see in the HP Stream and the like. And while it only comes with 64 gig of eMMC, which you cannot replace or upgrade, it does have a slot, an empty slot on the bottom, as I showed you before, for putting an SSD in. Now, I said before that, somebody in America buys these things, marks them up. Jumper is a Chinese laptop brand that's been around for several years. I've seen examples of jumpers before, and around the world, they're much more common than the name is here in the United States. But we'll go ahead and get one. We'll do a box opening and maybe a sort of more sustained review of it. You're not going to find USB-C here. You're going to find USB 3.0, which a lot of us actually like. It does have a SD card slot. They call it a TF card slot. It's got a headphone jack. It's got a, I think the Mini HD is like a miniature version of HDMI, but it has a barrel connector, right? It has this DCN connector there. Let's go down and look and see if they talk about let's see. Yeah, by Mini HD, I think they're talking about Mini HDMI. We'll find out when we do the unboxing. Now, anyway, so you can certainly watch for this to go on sale again here on Amazon. $249 is not a bad price either. The other thing I'll mention too is one other thing that doesn't pop up in the listings is if you click on, for instance, the HP Stream or something, and you start looking at the specs over at Best Buy, what you're going to find is that the screen resolution, looking for it now, there it is, display, 1366 by 768. Technically that's HD, but it's an older standard. Newer computers are going to come with higher resolution screens, and one of the nice things about this is that it comes with a HD screen, a true HD screen, 1920 times 1080, right? So it's got a better screen. From reviews I've read about this machine, the amount of brightness, called nits, is really good. Now, this is not a touch screen. It's not a 2-in-1. It's just a conventional laptop. Now, very quickly, going over to Banggood, and I will give you the link there too. Now, this is, to be honest, more expensive here. But if they were to sell out, and I think they've got the price, even the $249 is a pretty low price for this computer. But if they were to sell out, you can find different versions of this. So this has got only 4 gig of memory, but it comes with a 64 gig SSD in addition to the 64 gig, right? So that you can find different configurations of this laptop on the Chinese resellers. The downside, though, if you can find it cheaper, you're still going to have to wait usually 2 to 3 business weeks to get it. Now, the other machine also available on Amazon at this time is the BMAX Y11. And I'm not as familiar with BMAX as I am with Jumper, but it's had some good reviews, and there's a couple of things to really like about this laptop. First of all, as you can tell from the display here, or the graphic image, I clicked on the wrong one there. It's a 2-in-1, right? So you can fold it, you can do tent mode, presenter mode, however you want to. It also comes with a true HD screen. It's got a, let's look down here at the specs. It's got a 1920 times 1080, so the same as the Jumper. But more importantly, it comes with USB Type-C ports. Now, my understanding is they're a little bit finicky in terms of which chargers they will take. They'll obviously take the charger that comes with it, but you can find chargers that'll work with the USB-C ports here. And more importantly, it's got a newer Celeron. It's an N4120, which actually has 4 cores rather than the 2 cores of the N3350. It comes with 8 gig of RAM, and it comes with 256 gigabyte of M2 SSD. Now, Another thing to note is that just like the jumper machine, this BMAX machine also has a, I don't know if I have a picture of it here, but we'll see it. We'll get this in and do a review of it too. It also has a panel on the bottom that allows you to swap out the SSD. So again, for many people that are leery of opening up their new laptop and potentially breaking it, having those little panels on the bottom that allow you to open it up and insert an SD card or upgrade the SD card is a good thing. Now, I seem to remember, and we'll verify this when the machine actually comes in, but I think that expansion slot is an addition to the SSD that's contained in it. So you could add an SSD without worrying about copying and replacing it. The other nice thing about this is even though it looks smaller and it does have sort of slimmer bezels and everything, it actually takes a more standard 22 times 80 or 2280 as it's sometimes abbreviated, size SSD. So this thing is going to be easier to upgrade. You can find cheaper 2280 SSDs than you can 2242 on the other one. And it's going to be faster. The processor speed on this processor is faster, and the number of cores is 4 instead of 2 as it is on the other one. So both of these are good machines. Now this one selling for about $384 on Amazon, but here's an example of sort of the price differential you'll normally see. If you go over to Banggood, you can get it for $80 less, $299.99. Now, and they're saying that this is a flash deal, but there's several different parties that sell it on Banggood. They all sell it for the same price. It's always on a flash deal. But again, you're looking at, shipping's going to run, in this case, it could be 3 to 4 business weeks. So do keep that in mind. Is it worth saving $80 to get exactly the same machine as you're seeing here on Amazon for about $299? So we'll get both of them in. We'll take a look at it. Now, I will say that, when you go to Banggood, and by the way, what you might want to do is not so much comparison shop, but sort of recommendation shop. If you go to Banggood and look at the links that I'll provide to either of these machines, if you scroll down, they'll also talk about other types of similar laptops that people have bought. So other brands that I've heard of and dealt with before, Techlast is really good. They've had a good history of making these smaller, thinner laptops that usually have the little panels on the bottom to replace the SSDs. Chewy is a good known brand. I would read the reviews. And what a lot of times I'll do is I'll see the machine here, and then I'll go back to Amazon and see if somebody has offered it, probably at a markup, but if there's any reviews there that will speak more towards my use cases. And then another manufacturer, which we don't see here, is Xiaomi, but that's also a good brand to look at. So, like I said, I feel everybody's pain. There just simply aren't a lot of available decently priced laptops for sale right now, particularly if you're looking for kids or a second laptop for yourself. So one thing that you might consider is getting a Chinese brand with a better reputation, not better than the US, but better than sort of 3 stars. And you'll find that the EZbook has an average 4-star. Now, not many ratings, so that's another thing that you'd have to look at. But the BMAX has about a 4-star review too. And, you guys know the game on Amazon. You go down here and it's going to compare it to Lenovo's and Asus and Acer's. And yes, some of those will get 4.5 stars versus 4 stars. But, we're also talking about they're comparing a laptop that they're selling for $364, which we saw we can buy on Banggood for $299, with laptops that are selling for the $650, $500, $640, $450 type price range. So in this one right here, I would not consider. I do like Acer's, but this has even less eMMC storage. It has that same couple-year-old Celeron and only 4 gig of RAM. So that sort of would be out of contention for me. Whereas if I can get 8 gig here, in terms of capabilities, I think it compares with these 400 $500, $600 machines. So something to think about. I hope this has been helpful. And like I said, once we get the machines in, we'll do unboxings and talk about sort of the pros and cons. Take care.